I always thought the gym was the one place where nothing surprising could happen to me. You go in, you sweat, you lift things, you avoid eye contact with people way more fit than you, and you go home. Simple, predictable, safe. But that night my gym trainer stayed behind to correct my form, and nothing about it felt normal. Not the way he looked at me, not the way he stood behind me, and definitely not the way his hands lingered on my waist like he forgot he was supposed to let go. And the worst part, I didn't stop him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The whole thing started about 2 months ago, when I finally decided I was tired of having the upper body strength of a retired librarian. I wasn't out of shape, but I also wasn't what you'd call gym confident. I could run a mile, sure. Carry groceries, easy. But push-ups, pull-ups, dumbbells heavier than 25 pounds? Hard pass. So I signed up for this semi-fancy gym near my apartment. You know the type. Dim lighting, expensive water bottles, people who somehow look good sweating. I figured if I paid more, maybe I'd guilt myself into showing up. My first day, they assigned me a complimentary session with a personal trainer. I expected some middle-aged fitness guy who'd hand me a brochure and never talk to me again. I did not expect Liam. He walked toward me with that casual confidence trainers somehow learn in school or something. Tall, broad shoulders, tan skin, black t-shirt that fit him way too well, and this messy brown hair that somehow still looked intentional. And the smile. God, I had no business noticing the smile. "You must be Daniel," he said, offering his hand. Yeah, I managed, trying not to look like I was already out of breath just from seeing him walk. "I'm Liam. I'll be doing your intro session." His eyes flicked down and up in a way that somehow wasn't rude, more like he was checking for posture or alignment or whatever trainers look at. "You ever trained before?" Does YouTube count?" He laughed softly. "We'll start slow." We went through the standard stuff, warm-up, form checks, figuring out what my goals were. Except every time he came close to adjust something, I felt it. This little spark that shot straight through me, catching me off guard. He was professional, don't get me wrong. But his hands were warm, steady, confident, and when he corrected the angle of my shoulders or the placement of my feet, he'd say things like, "Good, just like that. Nice, Daniel. Yeah, that's perfect. Look, I'm not delusional. Trainers talk to everyone like that, I knew that. But my brain didn't care. For the next few weeks, I saw him around the gym a lot. We'd nod, smile, sometimes say a quick, "How's your day going?" Nothing major. But I noticed things. The way he watched his clients closely. How patient he was. How he always wore the same type of fitted black t-shirt. And how unfairly good it looked on him every single time. Slowly, I got more comfortable in the gym. Started learning the ropes. Squats didn't terrify me anymore. My arms actually had definition. And yeah, I felt good about myself for the first time in a while. Then came that night. A Tuesday. Quiet. Barely anyone there past 9 p.m. I had stayed late because work had been insane and I missed my usual workout time. I figured I'd go in, do a quick session, and leave before the place closed at 10, but when I walked in, I saw him immediately. Liam. Wiping down equipment, headphones around his neck, sweat on his temples like he had just finished his own workout. He looked up, smiled. My heart did something stupid. "Hey, Daniel, late one tonight?" "Yeah, work ran long," I said, pretending not to be flustered. "Didn't want to skip. Good call." He glanced around the nearly empty gym. "I'm closing up, but you've got time. Need help with anything?" I shook my head. "I'm good," but apparently I wasn't, because 10 minutes later, he was behind me. Literally behind me, watching me struggle miserably through a set of Romanian deadlifts like I had never seen a weight before in my life. "You're rounding again," he said, stepping closer. "Mind if I?" Before I could answer, his hands were on my hips, steady, firm, slow. "Here," he murmured. His voice was lower than usual. "Hinge from this point. Feel that?" I felt everything, especially the fact that he didn't move his hands away right after adjusting me. My breath caught. He noticed? I know he did. But he didn't back off. Instead, he said something that shifted the entire night. "You're tense. Let me help." And then he stepped even closer. Closer than a trainer normally would. Closer than he ever had before. And that was where everything started. I don't know what I expected him to do after saying that. Maybe step back. Maybe switch into full trainer mode. Maybe pretend he didn't just touch me in a way that made my knees feel like they forgot what bones were. But he didn't step back. He stayed right there behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body, close enough that his breath brushed the back of my neck every time he spoke. My hands tightened around the barbell without me even realizing it. "Relax your shoulders," he said softly. I tried. Failed. He chuckled under his breath, barely audible. "Not like that. Here." His hands slid from my waist to my lower back, pressing gently. Not hard, just enough to guide me. I swear my brain short-circuited. No trainer had ever done that to me. Not like that. And definitely not while standing that close. "Drop your chest a bit," he murmured. I lowered it. "A little more." I did. I don't know if my form improved, but my pulse was a whole disaster. "There you go," he said, and I felt his fingers graze my spine, slow and deliberate. "That's the position I want you in." I swallowed hard. "Okay. You good?" he asked quietly. "You seem tense tonight." "I'm fine," I muttered. Another laugh. So soft, it didn't match the emptiness of the gym. "Daniel," he said in this low voice that made something in my stomach flip, "I'm not correcting your form if you're about to pull something. Just tell me if it hurts." "It's not that," I blurted without thinking. He paused, and then, God help me, he moved closer. So close that the front of his torso brushed lightly against my back. Barely a touch, but it felt like a fire alarm went off under my skin. "Then what is it?" he asked. I couldn't answer. I couldn't even breathe right. His hand stayed on my lower back a second longer than normal. 2 seconds. 3. Then he finally stepped away. "Let's try something lighter," he said suddenly, his voice a little rougher than before. I nodded quickly, grateful for space but confused as hell by the shift in his tone. He swapped the barbell for a pair of dumbbells and demonstrated a hip hinge motion. I tried to watch only his form, but it was impossible. He moved with this effortless precision, muscles contracting and releasing under his shirt like he'd been designed for this. "You're staring," he said without looking up. I blinked. "What?" "No, I was just..." He shot me a grin that was way too amused. "It's okay, just focus." I probably turned bright red. I tried again, this time following his instructions exactly. And to my surprise, I actually got it right. "Nice," he said. "See? You learn fast." The compliment hit harder than it should have. After a few more reps, he walked around me, checking angles, adjusting little things. All normal. All professional. Until it wasn't. When I bent down again, he placed one hand on my hip and the other on my thigh. I froze. Not dramatically, not obviously, but enough that he felt it. "You all right?" he asked softly behind me. "Yeah," I whispered. My mouth was dry. His fingers tightened slightly. Not much, but enough to make my brain misfire. "Good," he said. "Just keep breathing." I tried. I really did. But there was something different in the way he touched me now. Not accidental. Not just correcting. More deliberate. Almost like he was testing something. Or waiting. Finally, after what felt like forever, he let his hands fall away. "You're doing great," he said. Seriously. And something in the way he said it wasn't just trainer to client. Not anymore. We finished the session in this strange, charged silence. I couldn't tell if he felt it too, or if I was imagining everything like an idiot. Every time I looked at him, he looked away. But not in an awkward way, in a thoughtful one. Like he was thinking through something he wasn't ready to say out loud. By the time I wiped down my equipment and grabbed my water bottle, the gym was practically empty. The lights had dimmed the way they always did before closing. I started heading toward the lockers. "You heading out?" he asked behind me. "Yeah." He walked up beside me, running a hand through his hair. You did a good job tonight, really? Thanks. Then he hesitated, just for a moment, like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he said, You free for a minute? My heart stuttered. Why? He scratched his jaw, exhaled slowly. There's something I want to show you. In the stretching room. He paused again. If you've got time. I didn't have time. I had work in the morning. I was exhausted. My legs felt like cooked noodles. But I still said, yeah, I've got time. And the second he heard that, something in his expression changed. Just a little, but enough. Enough to tell me that whatever was about to happen next wasn't going to be a normal trainer tip. If you ever want to know how loud your heartbeat actually is, try walking behind your gym trainer into a dim, empty stretching room after closing. Every step I took echoed, and for the first time in my life, I was hyper-aware of what my legs were doing. Too fast? Too slow? Did I look weird? Was I breathing weird? Liam held the door open for me, flicking on only the corner light, the soft, warm one the trainers used for cool-downs or yoga classes. The rest of the room stayed dark. The whole place looked different like that, smaller, more intimate. I stepped inside. He closed the door behind us. My stomach flipped. I wanted to show you something, he said, walking toward the center of the mats. Your hinge is good, but your upper body is still doing too much work. I've got a trick that might help. Okay, I said, though my voice came out a little too quiet. He noticed. His eyes flicked over me for a second, curious, cautious, and then he knelt down on the mat, motioning for me to do the same. Come here. It's easier to demonstrate from the floor. I sat across from him, trying not to stare at the way his shirt clung to his chest when he leaned forward. So, he said, sliding closer, I'm going to put my hands on your back again. That cool? Yeah, I said. Too fast. Way too fast. He smiled. Relax. I'm not going to break you. But the second he placed his hands on me, all rational thought left the building. His palms were warm, steady, slow. He guided my posture gently, adjusting the angle of my spine with the kind of confidence that made my breath catch. Good, he murmured. Now breathe, I inhaled. He exhaled at the same time. It felt synchronized. Then, without warning, he moved behind me, kneeling so close that his legs bracketed mine. His hands rested lightly on my shoulders. You're stiff, he said quietly. It's been a long day. Not that kind of stiff, he muttered. I didn't know if he meant that as a joke. I didn't ask. He slid his hands down my arms, slow and deliberate until he reached my elbows. Let your weight sink back, he said, voice lower than before. Trust me. I leaned back into him, too easily, too willingly. His chest pressed against my back, solid and warm, and suddenly, everything felt electric. I swear the air changed, thickened, like even the room knew something was happening. You feel that? He asked, his lips close enough to my ear that I almost shivered. Yeah, I whispered. That's the position you want, relaxed, supported, letting the movement do the work. But the way he said it didn't sound like he was only talking about lifting. His hands lingered on my sides, fingertips digging in just enough to ground me. Then he said something he hadn't said before, something that made my pulse jump. You're easy to work with, my throat tightened. Is that good? It is, he said. Most guys get tense when someone corrects them. You don't. Maybe I just trust you. The second the words left my mouth, I wanted to rewind them, swallow them, throw them out the window, anything. But he didn't pull away. He didn't laugh. He didn't shift into professional mode. Instead, he went still, completely, like he was waiting to hear something more. Then he spoke, quietly. You shouldn't trust me too easily. I turned slightly, not enough to break his grip, but enough to see him out of the corner of my eye. Why not? He didn't immediately answer. His jaw flexed. His fingers curled a little tighter around my ribs. And then he moved. Not away, not back, but closer. So close I could feel his breath against the side of my neck. So close his chest pressed fully into my back. so close the entire room seemed to shrink around us. Because, he said softly, sometimes I forget where the line is. I swallowed so hard he could probably hear it. He kept his hands on me. Gentle. Patient. But not neutral. Do you want me to stop? He asked, voice low, almost strained. I don't know what gave me the confidence to say it. Maybe the way he said my name earlier. Maybe the way his hands felt like they were memorizing me. Maybe the fact that I had been wanting this without admitting it. I shook my head. No, I whispered. I don't. He exhaled, slow, shaky, controlled, and I didn't know if he was relieved or trying to keep himself from doing something he had been thinking about for too long. Either way, he didn't move. He stayed behind me, hands on my body, breathing against my neck, and when he finally spoke again, it wasn't professional at all. Then I need you to tell me, he murmured, exactly what you want me to do next. If he had asked me that question in any other situation, in daylight, in a full gym, with people walking around, I would have laughed, pretended I didn't understand, changed the subject. But there, in that dim stretching room, with his hands still on my waist and his breath brushing the side of my neck, there was no pretending. My heart was beating so loud it felt like the only sound in the room. I started, but my voice cracked. Liam didn't move. Not an inch. If anything, he steadied his hands on me like he was grounding both of us. It's okay, he said, voice low. Take your time. But that only made the tension worse. His tone wasn't trainer serious. It wasn't friend casual. It was something else entirely. Controlled in a way that told me he was trying hard not to cross a line he definitely wanted to. What I wanted felt obvious. My body was already responding. My mind was screaming it. But saying it out loud, that was different. That made it real and terrifying. I finally whispered, I just don't want you to stop. His fingers tightened, barely. Just enough to let me know he heard exactly what I meant. Okay, he breathed, but he still didn't do anything. Not yet. Liam wasn't reckless. He wasn't a guy who acted without thinking. Even now, with this tension thick enough to taste, he was still giving me the chance to step back. Tell me something, he said quietly. You've been tense around me for weeks. Why? I almost laughed, because the answer was embarrassingly obvious. But I didn't want to ruin the moment by sounding like a flustered teenager. Instead, I said, you're not an easy person to ignore. He exhaled a soft laugh against my neck. Just breath, no sound, but it sent a shiver through me all the same. And you're not? He murmured. Daniel, you have no idea. My chest tightened. What do you mean? He hesitated. A long, heavy pause, then whispered, I notice you, more than I should. My breath caught. He felt it. His hands slid a little higher along my sides, the movement slow enough that I could have stopped him at any moment. I didn't. Does that bother you? He asked. No, I said, without a second of hesitation. That was all he needed. He shifted behind me, pulling me just a little closer, our bodies aligning in a way that was definitely not part of any stretching technique. His chest pressed fully against my back, warm and solid. The closeness made my entire body light up. You don't know how many times I've had to walk away, he said quietly, his lips close enough to my neck that I could feel each word. Trying not to make you uncomfortable. You didn't, I said. You sure? He asked. I nodded, barely, afraid any bigger movement would break the moment. He breathed in slow, exhaled slower. His hands moved again. One settling on my stomach, the other on my chest, warm and steady, like he was memorizing every inch. My pulse was racing so hard I knew he could feel it through my rib cage. You're shaking, he murmured. You're close, I whispered back. He let out a soft, unsteady sound, almost like a laugh, but not quite. More like something he'd been holding back for a long time. Then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned his forehead into the side of my neck, not kissing, not touching with his lips, just resting there, breathing, the simplest contact, but somehow the most intimate thing that had happened yet. We stayed like that for a moment. Him behind me, wrapped around me, both of us pretending we were steady when neither of us was. Finally, he said, If you need this to stop, you have to tell me now. I didn't. Instead, I reached up, hesitant at first, and placed my hand over his where it rested on my chest. He stilled. Completely. Like that tiny motion hit him harder than anything else tonight. "You're sure?" he asked, voice low, almost strained. "I'm sure." And then he moved. Not fast. Not rough. Just intentional. His hand slid from my chest to my jaw as he shifted closer, guiding me to turn just enough that I could see him. His face right next to mine, eyes darker in the soft light, jaw tense like he was holding back more than either of us realized. Our noses brushed. Not quite a kiss, but close enough that my breath caught. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I realized something. He wasn't uncertain. He wasn't confused. He wasn't experimenting. He wanted me, the same way I wanted him. He leaned in just a little more, and then the gym's AC unit kicked on with a loud rattling buzz, snapping both of us back into reality. He froze. I froze. And for a second, neither of us moved. Then he whispered, "We should probably slow down." My heart sank, but I understood. He wasn't pulling away completely, just grounding himself. "Right," I said quietly. But before I could second-guess what he meant, he slid his thumb across my jaw and said, "Not stop, just slow down." And that changed everything. For a few seconds after he said it, we just sat there in this weird electric stillness. His thumb still brushing my jaw, my hand still resting over his, both of us breathing like we just sprinted a mile. The humming AC unit filled the room, but even that sounded distant compared to how loud everything felt between us. "Slow down," I repeated quietly, not sure if I was clarifying or asking. He nodded once. "I don't want you thinking I'm rushing you, or that this is something I haven't thought about." That part hit me harder than I expected. "You've thought about this?" I whispered. He exhaled through his nose almost like a laugh. Except it wasn't funny. It was tired, honest. "For weeks," he said. My stomach flipped. Hard. He leaned back just enough to see my face clearly, like he needed to read every expression. "You're not the only one who gets tense around someone," he said softly. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I could say anything. My throat was too tight, my heart too loud, my brain too overloaded by the fact that this man, this stupidly attractive, calm, controlled trainer, had been feeling something too. "Liam," I finally managed. "I'm not confused. This isn't accidental for me." His expression changed at that, subtle, but real, softer around the eyes. Relief mixed with something warmer. "Good," he murmured. "That makes this easier." Before I could ask what this was, he let his hand slide from my jaw slowly, dragging the back of his fingers along my cheek as he lowered his arm. Even that tiny touch sent another wave of heat through me. He sat back on his heels, not far, just enough to give me space. "Come here," he said gently, patting the mat in front of him. I moved automatically, settling across from him again. We were close enough to feel each other's warmth, but not touching. "Not yet." "I want to show you something," he said, "for your posture." I raised an eyebrow. "My posture?" He smirked. "Partially." He reached out and placed his hands on my knees. Not intimate, not suggestive, just grounding. Then he straightened his spine, rolling his shoulders back in a way that made every muscle in his torso flex under his shirt. "Match me," he said. I tried. Badly. "Nope," he chuckled. "Try again." He lifted his hand and tapped my sternum gently. "Up." "Like that." "Yeah," I adjusted. "Good," he said. "Now keep that." He held my gaze just a beat too long for it to be purely instructional. "Why does this feel like something else?" I asked quietly. "Because it is," he said, without hesitation. My chest tightened. He leaned in slightly, not enough to break his slow-down rule, but enough that I could smell his cologne, clean and warm. "You're easy to read," he said. "You don't hide anything in your face." "That's embarrassing," I muttered. "No," he said softly. "It's good. I like that about you." I didn't expect that. at all. He adjusted my shoulders again, his touch light but lingering, sliding from the top of my arm to the side of my neck in one slow, controlled line. "You tense up here a lot," he murmured. "That's not why," I said before I could stop myself. His hand paused. "No?" he asked quietly. I shook my head. He looked at me like he was weighing whether to push further, then moved his hand, not away, but higher, his fingers brushing the back of my hair. "You don't have to tell me," he said. "I already know." The room felt a lot smaller suddenly. Then, gently, he slid his hand down until his palm rested over my chest again, right where he'd felt my heartbeat earlier. "You're still shaking," he said. "You're still close," I whispered again. This time, he didn't laugh. This time, he didn't hesitate. He moved closer, just a few inches, but enough to erase the neutral space between us. His knees brushed mine. His breath warmed my cheek. "Okay," he murmured. "No more pretending this is just training." My pulse spiked so hard his hand lifted with it. He noticed. He liked it. I could tell. "But we do this slow," he said, thumb brushing gently over my shirt. "I want to know what you want. And I want you steady. With me. Not overwhelmed." I let out a shaky breath. "I'm not overwhelmed." "Daniel," he said quietly, eyes locked on mine. "Your heartbeat is literally punching my hand." I laughed. A tiny, breathy thing. "Okay, maybe a little." "There it is," he murmured, smiling softly. "That's better." He lowered his hand from my chest, but didn't move away. Instead, he brushed his fingers intentionally along my forearm, tracing a slow line down to my wrist before letting go. "Stand up with me," he said. I did. The room felt different now. Bigger, brighter, heavier, lighter, all at once. He stood only a foot away, watching me the way someone watches a decision form before it's spoken. He stepped closer, not touching, just close enough that I felt the heat from his body again. "We'll stop here for tonight," he said gently. I blinked. "Stop?" He nodded. "If we keep going, we won't stop." He let that hang in the air for a long moment before adding, quieter, "And I want the next step to be something you walk into. Not something that just happens." I swallowed hard. "So what now?" I whispered. He opened the door, holding it with one hand but keeping his eyes on me the entire time. "Now," he said, "you go home. And you? I'll lock up." There was a pause, heavy, loaded, too warm for the empty gym. "Daniel," he added softly, "we're not done." My chest tightened. "I know." He stepped aside, letting me pass. But as I walked through the doorway, he reached out and brushed his knuckles lightly down my arm. The barest touch. A promise. "Good night," he said. I could barely breathe. "Good night." And when I left the gym, all I could think about was the way he said we're not done, like it wasn't a guess. It was a guarantee. I barely remember driving home that night. My hands were on the steering wheel, sure, but my head was still in that stretching room. His hands on my chest, his voice in my ear, the way he said we're not done, like he was talking about something inevitable. I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying every second, every touch, every breath. It wasn't just attraction anymore. It wasn't my usual, wow, he's hot gym crush. This was charged, mutual, intentional, and terrifying. I woke up the next morning with that same buzzing under my skin, the kind you get when you know something's changed, but you can't explain how. I kept checking my phone even though I had no reason to expect a message. Trainers didn't text clients. Guys like Liam didn't text guys like me. But still, my thumb hovered over the screen half the morning. By lunch, I had convinced myself I made it all up. That maybe it wasn't what I thought. Maybe he'd wake up today, realize he crossed a boundary, and pretend none of it happened. Maybe I'd see him tonight, and he'd be back to casual, friendly, professional Liam. That possibility kept twisting in my stomach. My session with him wasn't until Thursday, 2 days away, but I couldn't wait that long. I needed something. Confirmation. Clarity. Literally anything to tell me I hadn't imagined that whole moment. So around 5 p.m., way earlier than usual, I grabbed my bag and went to the gym. I told myself it was for cardio, for movement, for stress relief. It was for him. The place was busier than last night. Music louder, weights clanking, people talking. Familiar, noisy, normal, too normal. I scanned the room the second I walked in. No sign of him. I stretched for a bit, tried the treadmill, did 2 sets of lat pull-downs, but my head wasn't in it. I kept checking the trainer's desk. Empty. The clock ticked painfully slow. I debated just leaving. Then the locker room door opened. And he walked out. Same fitted black shirt. Same calm expression. Same stupidly perfect hair. But when his eyes found me, immediately, like he'd been looking too, his whole face shifted. Not dramatically. Just softer. He walked toward me. Slow. Deliberate. Controlled. My pulse jumped right back to last night's rhythm. "Hey," he said, stopping in front of me. Close, but not touching. Respectful space, warm eyes. "Hey," I breathed. "You're early," he said, a tiny smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. "You never come at this time." I swallowed. "Yeah, I just needed a workout." He raised an eyebrow. "Did you?" It wasn't a question. I shrugged. "Maybe." His smile grew a little. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. "I just wasn't sure if—" after last night. His expression changed. Not guilty, not distant, more like he'd been waiting for me to bring it up. He stepped just a little closer, barely a half step, but enough that the noise of the gym seemed to fade. "Daniel," he said low, "last night wasn't an accident." My stomach dropped in the best way possible. "I meant every part of it," he added. "You sure?" I asked quietly. His jaw flexed. He looked at me the way people look at something they're trying very hard not to rush toward. I had to stop myself, he admitted. If I didn't, we wouldn't have stopped. Heat rushed through me. I didn't want to stop, he inhaled, slow and deep. "Yeah, I know." The room felt too bright around us, too public, too exposed. He noticed, glanced around, then said in a low voice, "Come with me for a sec." My heart kicked. "Where?" He didn't answer, just tilted his head toward the side hallway near the offices. Not the stretching room, not a private room, just a quieter hallway where the noise of the gym faded. I followed him. The moment we stepped around the corner, he faced me again. Closer this time, closer than he'd dared last night. Not touching, but barely. "Look," he said softly. "I didn't sleep much either." My breath caught. I kept thinking about everything. He glanced down, then back up. "And the only thing I'm worried about is moving too fast for you." "You're not," I said. His eyes darkened just slightly. "You say that now." "I mean it." He exhaled through his nose, like he was trying to keep himself grounded. And then he leaned one hand on the wall next to my head, not trapping me, not pushing me, just anchoring himself there, inches from me. "Daniel," he said quietly, "if I touch you right now, I'm not stopping." My body flooded with heat. "What if I don't want you to stop?" I whispered. He closed his eyes for half a second, like the words physically hit him, then opened them again, looking straight at me. "We can't do this here," he said, voice low, rougher than before. "Then where?" He hesitated. "Then—" "My place," he said. Everything in me jolted. "When?" I asked. His answer came without hesitation. "Tonight." My pulse tripped. "Are you sure?" I breathed. He nodded once, slow and certain. "Yeah, I'm done pretending this is something I can ignore." My voice came out small. "Okay." He stepped back, just a little, like giving me room was the only thing keeping him from grabbing me right then and there. "I get off at 10, he said. "Come by after? I'll text you the address." I blinked. "You have my number?" He gave me a look that was half amused, half something darker. "Daniel," he murmured, "I've had it." My chest tightened. "I'll see you tonight," he said. Then he walked away, back into the bright, busy gym, leaving me in the quiet hallway with only one thought running through my entire body. This wasn't a crush anymore. This was going to be something real. And I had no idea what was going to happen next. 10 o'clock felt like it took 3 years to arrive. I showered twice. Changed shirts 4 times. Tried styling my hair, hated it, messed it up again. I wasn't nervous. Not exactly. Just wired. Buzzing. Like every second was too loud. At 9:42 p.m., my phone buzzed. Liam. Address: 214 Logan Street. Doors unlocked. Come up when you get here. Unlocked. He trusted me like that? I stared at the message for a long moment before grabbing my keys and heading out. The night air felt colder than usual. The drive was only 10 minutes, but the whole time I kept replaying the way he stood so close to me earlier. The way his voice dropped when he said tonight. The way his hand hovered beside my head on the wall like he was barely holding himself back. When I pulled up to his building, a small, modern apartment complex with warm lights glowing through the windows, my heart started pounding again. I sat in the car for maybe 20 seconds, hands on the steering wheel, breathing like I'd just run a sprint. Then I got out. The front door wasn't locked. The hallway was quiet, carpeted, smelling faintly of detergent and something warm. Maybe someone cooking. His apartment number was on the second floor. I climbed the stairs, pulse steady but hard. When I reached his door, I hesitated, just for a moment. Then I turned the handle, unlocked. Like he said, inside, the lights were low. Warm, soft, inviting. Shoes by the door, a jacket on the hook, quiet music playing somewhere deeper in the apartment. I stepped in and shut the door behind me. "Liam?" I called softly. "Back here." His voice came from the living room. I followed it. And there he was, standing by the window in a fitted dark blue t-shirt and joggers, hair still damp from a shower, arms crossed loosely over his chest. The city lights behind him made the room glow. And the moment he saw me, really saw me, his whole expression changed. Not surprised, not hesitant, more like relief. "You came?" he said. I swallowed. "Yeah," he nodded once, breathing out like a tension he'd been carrying all day, finally loosened. "Good," he murmured. "Close the door." I already had, but the way he said it made warmth shoot through me anyway. I stepped further inside. For a second, we just stood there, 2 feet apart, facing each other, the air between us heavy enough to lean on. Finally, he spoke. "I wasn't sure if you'd actually show. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to." He let out a quiet laugh, short, breathy. "Daniel, I've been thinking about you all day." My chest tightened. "Same," I admitted. He uncrossed his arms and stepped closer. Just one step, but it felt like something clicked into place. "You nervous?" he asked gently. I considered lying, but I didn't. "A little." His expression softened. "Good, I am too." That surprised me. Liam never seemed nervous. He was always composed, steady, sure of himself. But now, up close, I could see the tension in his jaw. The way his fingers flexed once at his sides like he didn't know what to do with them. He stopped just in front of me. Not touching, but close enough that I felt the warmth of his body. "This is your pace," he said quietly. "Not mine. You tell me where we start." "I'm here," I whispered. "That's me, telling you." A muscle jumped in his jaw. Then, slowly, he lifted his hand, giving me every chance to pull back, and placed his fingers under my chin. Just a touch, just enough to tilt my face up toward his. "Then I'm going to ask you again," he said, voice low. "No confusion this time." My breath caught. "Daniel," he said, "do you want me to kiss you?" Every part of me answered before my mouth did. "Yes." His thumb brushed my chin, soft, careful. "Say it again," he whispered. "I want you to kiss me." He exhaled, slow, like he'd been holding his breath for hours. And finally, he closed the distance. Not fast, not hungry, not rushed. Slow, intentional. His hand slid from my chin to the side of my jaw, pulling me gently toward him as his lips met mine in a warm, steady, grounding kiss that made my knees feel like someone unplugged them. He didn't push. He didn't take. He just kissed me like he'd been waiting for it, like he wanted to feel every second of it. And I kissed him back. When he finally pulled away, just barely, He rested his forehead against mine, breathing softly. God, he whispered, I've wanted to do that for too long. I swallowed, my voice barely there. Me too, he smiled against my lips. Good. His fingers traced my jaw, slow and warm. Because we're not stopping at just a kiss. My pulse jumped. We're taking this slow, he said, pulling back just enough to look into my eyes. But we're not stopping. He took my hand gently. Come here. He led me deeper into the apartment, toward the couch, toward the warmth, toward whatever came next. And for the first time since this all started, I wasn't nervous. I was ready. He didn't take me to the bedroom. I expected he might, the way his hand tightened around mine, the way the air felt thick enough to taste, the way his kiss was still lingering on my lips like a heat source. But instead, Liam guided me toward the couch, slow, controlled, like he'd made a decision hours before I even arrived. When we reached it, he turned to face me again, still close, still warm, but with that same steady restraint he'd had in the stretching room. Sit, he said softly. Not commanding, not dominant, just sure. I sat. He stayed standing for a second, hands on his hips, breathing in like he needed to reset something inside himself. Then he lowered himself beside me, turning so his knee brushed mine. Before anything happens, he said gently, I need you to know something. My breath caught. He rubbed his thumb against his palm, a nervous habit I had never seen from him before. This, whatever's happening between us, it's not casual for me. That hit me harder than any tension we'd had so far. Okay, I whispered. It's not casual for me either. His eyes softened, just slightly. Good. He reached out, a little hesitant, and rested his hand on my thigh, light at first, then firmer, once he felt me relax under the touch. You sure you're not overwhelmed? He asked. I could have lied, but I didn't have to. No, I said quietly. Just aware. Of me? He asked, voice low. My throat tightened, very. Something flickered across his face, something warm and restrained and relieved at the same time. He leaned in a little, brushing his nose along my cheek. You say things like that, he murmured, and it gets very hard to keep my promise. What promise? To take this slow. His lips ghosted the corner of my jaw, not quite kissing, but close enough that my breath stuttered. I whispered, You don't feel like you're going slow. I'm trying, he said, his voice rougher. Believe me. His hand slid a little higher on my thigh, not inappropriate, just enough to pull another wave of heat through me. He watched my reaction closely, like every muscle twitch meant something to him. Tell me if you want more, he said, or tell me if you want me to stop. I don't want you to stop. He exhaled, relief, desire, tension, all mixing into one sound. Come here, he said. I leaned into him this time. This kiss was different. Not tentative like the first one by the window. Not testing anything. This one was deeper, slower, heavier, like he was learning the shape of my mouth and filing it away somewhere personal. He pressed a hand to the back of my neck, steady and grounding, pulling me closer. I curled my fingers into the fabric of his shirt, anchoring myself in him. Each breath we took was shared, each movement deliberate. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. Our breaths mingled. Daniel, he whispered like he was saying it just to hear it. Yeah? He cupped my jaw with both hands now, his thumbs brushing my cheekbones. If we keep going, I'm not letting this be a one-time thing. My pulse tripped. I don't want it to be one time. His shoulders dropped just slightly, tension leaving him in a visible wave. Good, he said, voice soft but certain. Because I want to see you again. Outside the gym. Like this. I nodded once. I want that too. He skimmed a thumb across my lip, studying me with a look that made my entire body tighten. Okay, he said, leaning back just enough to see my full face. Then, come here. I moved closer again, sinking into him, his arm looping around my waist as our lips met one more time. Slow and warm and unhurried. He kissed me like we had nowhere to be, like he wasn't rushing toward anything, like we had a whole night to figure out the space between us. Time blurred after that. Not in some dramatic movie way, more like the world just faded out. The music, the street noise outside, even the dim light in the room, all of it dulled under the weight of how carefully he held me. Not possessive, not cautious, just steady. We kissed for a long time. Not fast, not messy, just real. His hands slid under my shirt to rest warm on my lower back, fingers curling gently against my skin. At one point, he whispered against my lips, "I want you to stay. Not overnight. Just don't leave yet." "I wasn't planning on it," I whispered back. He smiled into the next kiss. Soft, almost boyish, and pulled me closer again. Eventually, when we finally stopped for breath and leaned back against the couch, his hand found mine on its own, fingers sliding between mine without hesitation. We sat there in silence for a minute, the kind of silence that only happens when two people finally admit what they've been holding back for too long. Then Liam said, barely above a whisper, "This is only the beginning, you know." I squeezed his hand. "I know." He turned his head to look at me, eyes warm, lips still a little swollen from kissing. "Good," he murmured, "because I'm not done with you. Not even close." And I believed him. Every word, every touch, every slow, steady promise. This wasn't where it ended. This was where it started.